There's a point financially when your income doesn't matter as much as your savings rate, especially when it comes to your quality of life and the freedom you have over it. It's much less about how much money you make and more about how much money you keep. If you're looking to be able to have the ability to retire from a job, let alone retire early, the biggest factor in determining if and when you can retire is not your income, it is your savings rate. Hi, I'm Nadia, one half of the Wealth Twins, and I can't express to you the difference having a high savings rate had for me. Not only the difference, but the influence, leverage, and the amount of power it gave me over having a high income when it came to my decision to retire before the age of 35. So let's jump into it. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that it's not easier to save money if you have a high income. There have been studies that show that the more income you make, the more likely you're going to start saving. However, it is not necessary for you to have a high income in order to be able to have a high savings rate. It is quite possible for someone making $75,000 a year to have more financial freedom and financial security than someone making $250,000 or $200,000 a year. And that is through the difference in their savings rate. When I was working, I definitely was not the highest paid worker in my office. There were plenty of coworkers who made more than me. However, I had more financial freedom than many of my coworkers because of my high savings rate. At one point, I was saving 50 to 75% of my paycheck. That's after my retirement savings, after taxes, and after expenses. This gave me the ability to make work optional when, for many of my coworkers, working was a necessity for them to be able to live their lives. Now, when I'm talking about savings rate, I'm not talking about just the money you put away and have saved. I'm talking about the percentage of disposable income that you have. Disposable income is the money you have after taxes and after your expenses have been paid. Your savings rate is the percentage of that disposable income that you're able to save. Now, understanding this is critical because a person making $75,000 and putting away $7,500 a year versus someone who's making $250,000 and putting away $7,500 a year, that person who's making $75,000 is in a much better position financially when it comes to their savings rate because they're saving 10% of their pay versus the person who's saving $7,500 making $250,000, they're just saving 3% of their pay. The amount may be the same, but the savings rate is completely different. If you want to be able to increase your savings rate, you first have to drop your consumption rate. And your consumption rate is how much are you spending on expenses. When you lower your expenses, you will be able to start increasing the amount of money you save, thereby increasing your savings rate. Start off by trying to save 1% more of your disposable income. As you keep moving forward on a monthly basis, I want you to start increasing the percentage of your disposable income that you're putting into savings, and then gradually increase it from there. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. This should not be a miserable process. If you're increasing it slightly at the beginning, you'll see that it'll be easier for you to maintain for the long term. Now, you may be able to make the case that your savings rate doesn't matter that much once you have enough saved for emergencies, and that in the long run, maybe your income matters more than your savings rate. Now, I used to think the same thing. When I was younger, my family had a lot of money problems, and I thought they all could be solved if we just had more money coming in, if my parents made a higher income. Up to a certain point of income, this is true. You need to have enough income to cover your basic needs so that you're not stressed about money all the time. And then you have to have enough to cover you when emergencies happen. Now, notice I said when, not if. An emergency will happen, so you need to have an emergency savings account. But once you move past that point, that's when your savings rate matters way more than your income, and it has a higher value in your life than income does. Saving for emergencies is just the tip of the iceberg. You have to have enough money on hand to be able to cover you when an emergency happens so that you're not destroyed financially, at least not for a long time. But if you change your mindset when it comes to savings and move past just saving for emergencies and start including things like saving for your retirement, you will understand that your savings rate matters way more than your income, because when you're trying to retire and you're no longer able to make an income or want to have an income coming from a job, this is when the value comes in when it comes to your savings rate. Once your emergency funding is taken care of, to take your savings rate to the next level, You can continue saving for retirement, but at the same time, you can use your high savings rate as your weapon or as your superpower in order to create a life of freedom for yourself. A high savings rate gives you the ability to make choices with your life and figure out what you really want to do without taking on enormous financial risks like you would if you were dependent solely upon an income. You can take risks like starting a new business or going back to school to change careers. You would be able to take these risks, and if they didn't pan out, you wouldn't be ruined financially. You'll be able to bounce back because you have developed the superpower of having a high savings rate. You can do work that you enjoy or pursue life goals like maybe living in another country for years or volunteering your time. You're able to do this because your financial obligations are taken care of to the point that you don't have to worry financially anymore or even be dependent upon an income if you chose to do so. You're able to live on less than you make or make none at all because of a high savings rate. I like to call having a high savings rate a financial escape plan. Here are a couple of steps in order for you to implement a financial escape plan in your life. First, I want you to be able to cover 6 months of your basic needs. This is food, shelter, and clothing. And at the same time, I want you to be able to fund your retirement accounts. Once you have 6 months of your emergency savings or your basic needs covered, I want you to be able to switch your priorities to just saving for retirement and saving for a goal. Now, that goal could be small at first. Maybe the goal is to pay for camp or buy a new car, or maybe a vacation. At the same time that you're saving for retirement, I want you to start saving for bigger goals. And as you do this, it's going to become a lot easier and more of a habit for you to increase your savings rate. Once you implement a financial escape plan, you'll be amazed at how easily you're able to gain control and freedom over your life when there was none before, when you depended only on a high income or income in general. If you want to build wealth and have control over that wealth, you should focus on your savings rate and not your income. Your savings rate is what matters most in this case also. Let's be honest, many of us have very little control over the income you make, especially if you're being paid by an employer. You have enormous control over your savings rate, and that gives you more control over your life. If you want to build wealth, you increase your savings rate and take the money that you're saving from your income and invest that into assets that will build wealth for you. Say you take the money that you're saving and you put it into stocks or you put it into real estate. Those are assets that will allow you to build your wealth. Your wealth is independent from your income. When you're buying these assets grow independent from your income. So your income can stay the same while at the same time your wealth is growing. No matter how high your income is or whether you're paid at all, those assets will continue to grow for you and work for you, compounding the money that you had invested in them in the first place. This allows you to diversify where your source of funds come from, so you're not dependent upon just an income. This gives you more financial security and financial freedom at the same time. And this is completely independent from how much money you make. So having a high or low income does not matter if you start investing in assets, which you can only invest in if you have a high savings rate. If you have a high income and you spend all of your money, you can't invest in anything else that will help you grow your wealth. If you have a low savings rate and you spend most of what comes in from your income, you'll never be able to detach yourself from an employer or give yourself financial freedom. You will always be dependent on an income, no matter how much money you make. So if you want to determine how well you're doing financially compared to someone, don't look at how much money they make. Look at how much money they're spending. Look at how much money they're spending on housing. Look how much money they're spending on cars, vacations, or anything. That will tell you much more about how you're doing financially compared to them than how much money you're actually making. You may be surprised that you're in a much better financial position than many people. There was a study several years ago that said if you had $10 in your pocket and no debt, you're doing much better off than at least 25% of the population. So when you're looking at your financial position, don't worry about how much money you make. Focus on how much money you're able to save and keep. And the way you do that is by increasing your savings rate. If you want to learn different ways on how you can increase your savings rate and at the same time learn how to invest, join our newsletter called The Wealth Pack. We teach you how to increase your wealth and your financial knowledge. And just like any other pack, we make sure that no one's left behind. If you're interested in joining the Wealth Pack, check out the description below and join there.